course, it's a different format from forums in the past, not without its challenges, meeting with Zoom, obviously, but also with its benefits, because I think tonight we have about 80 people joining the forum. So we've got a really good attendance. So thank you everyone for your interest, and we very much look forward to a really interesting, short but interesting meeting this evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the many lands on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and any elders who are present here with us this afternoon. Now, I'd just like to check and see whether we have Michael with us, because Michael is doing the formal opening for us. So, Michael Kalimnios, are you with us?
I am.
Excellent, wonderful. So, without further ado, I will hand over to Michael. Michael is the Chief Executive Officer of Albury-Wodonga Health. He's been in that role for about a year. It's the largest regional health service between Sydney and Melbourne, and it's Australia's only cross-border public health service, and I'm sure that is not without its challenges at the moment, Michael, so we're very, very grateful that you could join us this evening. And in addition to this role, Michael is the chair of the Hume HRICS. So welcome, Michael, for you to welcome everyone else.
Thanks, Heather. And look, hopefully everyone can see me and hear me. Welcome, everyone. Again, as Heather said, it's an unusual format this year, and it is a bit of a shame we can't get together like we normally do. One of my first experiences in joining Albury-Wodonga Health was to attend last year's annual forum, which was a really positive experience. So again, unfortunately, we can't do that this year, but we do have an interesting program and a very worthwhile program, which hopefully you'll all enjoy. Just before we get into the program, I just did want to make a couple of quick comments about Hume HRICS and just what we've achieved in the last 12 months or so. It is obviously my first kind of foray into this space, having joined Albury-Wodonga Health just a year ago, and I've really enjoyed the chairmanship of Hume HRICS from a personal point of view. It's given me a much better understanding of how cancer services are delivered in this region, and indeed, I think we have a wonderful structure which allows us to share and develop integrated care and cancer services across the region, which I think is certainly leading Victoria and really kind of positive when we look at what's happening across the rest of Australia. So again, just thank you to everyone for giving me the opportunity to chair this group. Of course, the Hume region, really like all other sort of regions across Australia, is demonstrated a lot of resilience and strength in its community in this year of unprecedented challenge. In this region, of course, we had the summer of bushfires, which were dominating what we needed to do, and then, of course, we've had the ongoing challenges of COVID, which have, as I say, been unprecedented. And all our partner organisations, all our health services and others across the region have been outstanding in being able to prioritise their services and change their services to meet that challenge. And Cancer Services has been leading in that, and being able to continue cancer services across the region in the face of a really significant changed environment and very different expectations of our patients and their staff. Hume HRICS staff have partnered with our partner health services to respond to COVID-19 pandemic, pivoting rapidly to address urgent and emerging needs. And that's included in assessment and evaluation of clinician and patient experiences related to particularly the rapid expansion of telehealth, which I think is an area that one of the positives out of the pandemic has been the increased use of telehealth as a way of perhaps reaching patients more effectively. Obviously, there's been challenges and risks with that, but certainly Hume HRICS and how it's worked with, as I say, a partner agency to facilitate that has been really impressive and really important. In addition to COVID, of course, we've continued to focus on a number of areas in Hume HRICS across the last 12 months. A significant area that we have been working on, of course, has been developing a Hume Region Cancer Plan. Consultation across the region occurred encompassing every facet of the cancer pathway, both in the community and within health services, to support the development of the cancer plan. We're in the final stages of that development now, and we are very hopeful that we'll be able to release the final plan by the end of 2020, so by Christmas time this year. That'll give us a really clear roadmap forward about what we want to do in terms of developing cancer services across our region, what that looks like and where our focus of priority will be. So please look out for that. The wellness and exercise programs have evolved from pilot projects to embedded programs across the region. And similarly, we've had to adopt those to virtual and telehealth formats because of the pandemic. And again, just demonstrating our ability in Hume HRICS to work with partner agencies to do what we need to do to ensure that these kind of programs are able to be delivered effectively. The implementation of optimal care pathways continue to be a key focus of Hume HRICS, with service improvements delivered as part of this program of work. Engagement of clinicians and health services has been fundamental to improvements in access and timeliness to care and ongoing improvement in cancer survival in the region. And I suppose the final thing I'll just mention quickly in terms of a bit of a focus for us this year is pandemic certainly has seen significant changes in the way multidisciplinary teams meet to plan and coordinate cancer care both within the region and also to our referral partners. So again, that's been something that we've really had to focus on and been able to adjust to pretty quickly, and Hume HRICS has really facilitated that very well. I really do want to thank Sophie Scott, Joanne Mason, Siobhan Stewart for their support of Hume HRICS, and all of us who are part of that, I think, would recognise the effort that they put into the executive and maintaining the Hume HRICS process across the region. We do have a very interesting program, as I say, today. I hope you enjoy it. Again, welcome to today's forum through the virtual world. Please sit back and enjoy the information that's about to be presented to you. And again, thank you for your attendance today. And I'll hand back to Heather. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Michael, very much for that warm welcome. And again, my welcome to everyone present as well. I'm just going to go through a few brief suggestions or instructions for all of you who are present, just to make sure that you get the most out of the forum this evening. And then we'll move on to our speakers. As Michael said, we've got 3 speakers and I think you'll find their presentations really interesting. So in terms of how we manage the forum, if you could please keep yourself muted, other than our speakers, of course, but make sure you're on mute. Please disable your camera. And also just a suggestion to ensure that you are in speaker view so that you can see the speakers clearly. Just to let you know that we'll be recording the session, and the recording will be made available on the Hume HRICS website after the meeting. We've got 3 very qualified and well-credentialed speakers, and their bios have been sent to you via Eventbrite. So we will be introducing them only briefly, but their full bios have been forwarded to you, and they've also been scrolling on the screen during the waiting time, I believe. In terms of asking questions and interaction, we're going to ask you, if a question comes to mind, please pop it into the chat room, into the chat box, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. And after we've heard from the speakers, we'll have a short period where we can ask and explore some of the questions that have been asked. And if there's questions that are not answered, we'll do our best to get back to people afterwards. So we'll use the time we have, and we'll come back to afterwards with perhaps some high-level written answers if we're not able to get to your questions during the forum. But please feel free to ask them, because they're important for us. In terms of the speakers, if you could please ensure before you start that you are not muted and that your camera is on, in contrast to everyone else. And the speakers will be sharing their own screens and controlling their own slides, although we do have a backup copy as an emergency. And you may be asked, of course, to answer some questions at the end. So please stay with us, and we'll give you a 2-minute warning when you get towards the end of your presentation. So we are keen to keep on time and to make sure that that everyone can head off to their evening at 7 o'clock on the dot. So that's the program for the evening, and I'm going to move straight into introducing our first speaker, who is Craig Underhill. And I know Craig will be very well known to you all. He's the co-clinical director for the Hume HRICS. He's the VCCC Regional Oncology Lead. He's chair of the Regional Trials Network, and he also leads the VCCC Tele Trials program. And Craig, I know, has been enormously active in driving the agenda for better access to cancer services for regional Victorians. And I know we all really appreciate that. So we're pleased to have you here, Craig. Thank you for joining us, and I'll hand over to you. And you might be on mute because I can't hear you at this point.
Yeah, I was just waiting for your introduction before I did that. So can you all see the slides okay?
Craig, I can see a beautiful alpine scene. There now we can see your slides, I think.
Fantastic. So thanks very much for asking me along, and welcome everybody. This is a bit of an unusual...
I can't hear you at the moment, Craig, so you might be on mute.
Can you unmute me, someone?
You're unmuted.
I can hear Craig, Heather.
Yeah, I can hear Craig.
Great.
We right?
Yes, we're right. Over to you, Craig. Thanks.
So yeah, it is a bit of an unusual format, but in some ways a better way to do it than dashing across the region after a long day at work. This is the title of my talk tonight. I really wanted to talk about some of the work that's been going on this year to try and link services together. So never waste a crisis. I think the pandemic has really helped to move some things forward at lightning speed, and brought about some good in a way. So these are some of the things I want to touch on briefly tonight to really inform you all about some of these initiatives. Just a reminder that this is the 5-year survival for all HRICS since the inception of the HRICS program. You can see the regional HRICS on the left and the metro HRICS on the right. We've seen steady progress in Hume to the point where we're now, not far off the metropolitan average. Overall in Victoria, there's a 3 or 4% difference between metro and regional in 5-year survival, but we're doing actually okay, which is fantastic. The tribute to everyone's effort over the years. And we'll get another update on this next week or the week after from the Cancer Registry. The first thing I just wanted to let you know about was the Regional Trials Network in Victoria. This was a project funded jointly by the Cancer Council Victoria and the Victorian Cancer Agency, set up 3 years ago to try and get the regional centres working together in the clinical trial space. This is a graphic of the partners. So you can see both Shepparton and Albury-Wodonga has been a partner with 4 other regional sites, plus Cancer Trials Australia, which is in Parkville, which has provided some business acumen and assistance with these sites. So that's the map of Victoria. So Gippsland chose not to join the first iteration of this program, but they are joining in with the next iteration, which is good news. And this area covers about the existing regional trials network is about 1.4 million people and about 7,000 cancer diagnoses per year, and represents about 400 of the excess deaths per annum between metro and regional. Around the same time as this was being established in 2017, the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre established a teletrials program, and I was invited onto the VCCC staff as a regional lead and helped set up this trials program. So we decided that we should join the RTN and the VCCC together in this effort to implement teletrials rather than working separately. So what's a teletrial? Teletrial is really just the use of telemedicine to run regional trials. And here's the definition here, which you can all read. In 2016, COSA published the Australasian teletrial model, which was a framework for the use of telemedicine in clinical trials. So it covers off on a number of aspects of running a trial. Obviously, there's lots of rules and regulations about running a trial, and these are all described in the teletrials framework. So this VCCC, an RTN program, really wanted to implement the use of telemedicine in clinical trials and implement this framework. And it was quite successful at doing that. The first study opened in 2018, in November of that year, and more than, I think yesterday the count was 112 patients were recruited to date on that first trial, which was quite a simple trial being run between Peter Mac, Board of Medical Oncology, and Bendigo, and recently Shepparton and Ballarat has been added in, and Bendigo has been also running it between Bendigo and Kerrang. There's an additional 5 trials open and 4 about to open. And of note, the VCCC program assisted the Alfred in a rapid startup in the first phase of the pandemic, and actually conducted a phase 1 between the Alfred and Hobart. A patient who was on a phase 1 study travelling over from Tasmania on, I think, on a weekly or fortnightly basis for treatment, was able to be put to stay in Hobart and receive their treatment, which was delivered to Hobart, which was quite a landmark event, because people were quite sceptical about the ability to conduct a phase 1 by telemedicine. So multiple models are now in place. Some of the studies are sponsored by industry, some by national cooperative groups. There's investigator-led studies. There's trials between metro and regional, interstate now, intra-regional. And the VCCC program is quite well funded, and that enabled a number of quite rigorous evaluations. So we asked an outside organisation to audit the processes, and that was passed with this first trial. A consumer perspective study has been published. There's a health economic evaluation pending. There's a clinician survey in progress, and the program has published an online teletrials education module and implementation toolkit, and they're both available on the VCCC website. But we soon discovered that the benefits were not just in getting patients onto study, but there's a whole lot of other significant benefits that are less tangible. And it's really about this opportunity to collaborate and network between regional and metropolitan centres and upskill the workforce. So the Regional Trials Network in Victoria was a 3-year project which is now finished. So that appears to be a great success. Firstly, it's a hard thing to do, is to establish new networks. So that was the ability to establish the network was a success in its own right. But we saw between the baseline in 2017 and last year, you can see the results there, 63% increase in feasibilities, 53 new trials open, and a 50% increase in the patients recruited, And there were major benefits seen in terms of standardising some of the operating procedures, marketing to sponsors, and training and mentoring. And this program has now been sustained through the MRFF funding from the Australian government, so $18.6 million over 5 years from the Regional Rural Remote Clinical Trial Infrastructure Fund. And that will fund a program called, which the short name for that is Revitalise. And what that aims to do, this is a summary in 1 page. This aims to bridge the gap between metro and regional trials by 2025, bring more trials to the regions by expanding the network to include Mildura and La Trobe, and to work on a number of elements of health services research which are listed here. So that's now the participating organisation. So we're planning to add Mildura and La Trobe, and that's the distribution on the map. So this is about 1.7 million people live outside of metropolitan Melbourne, and so they're now hopefully better covered by this clinical trials network. So I think we saw the Albury-Wodonga Cancer Centre open 4 years ago, and other centres around Victoria. And what we're now seeing is the ability to connect those centres and join the dots. Of note is a partnership that's just started between Albury-Wodonga Health and the Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre, and also in Bendigo, with a plan to extend to the other regional centres in the future. And it's basically an affiliate partnership backed by an MOU, which enables a number of better access to the VCCC programs for our region, which is a great coup, and I think will lead to substantial benefits in the future. The VCCC is waiting on an announcement of its funding in the Victorian budget in the next couple of weeks, and they're developing a strategic plan for 2020 to 2024. I'm working within that regional program to help come up with ideas, and the others on the call are also represented on that group. And there's a number of elements that have been proposed and worked up. Again, there's a great emphasis within this strategic plan about the regional issues and trying to solve some of those regional problems. So I think, again, it's quite exciting times to see all of us hopefully better linked into the VCCC. Now, you can't do a talk in 2020 without mentioning coronavirus. So one of the benefits this year was everybody really trying to come together during the first phase of the pandemic to respond. And what was quickly established was what's called the Victorian COVID-19 Cancer Network, or the VCCN. So that's a joint initiative between the VCCC, the Monash Partners Comprehensive Cancer Centre, the Department, the Cancer Council, and the Integrated Cancer Services, with quite strong consumer representation to try and respond together to the COVID pandemic. So it's providing some advocacy and some direct lines of reporting to the state government's pandemic response. And it's really a forum to share information and to better respond together. So I sit on two groups within that network. The first one is the Clinical Directors Group, and Javier sits on that as well, of course. And I think that's been a fantastic group. It's really tried to unify the approach to the pandemic response with various initiatives, and there's some examples there: admission policies, visitor policies, sharing workforce, and PPE policies. Implementing new models during the COVID pandemic, and that's been described in a article that's published in the International Medical Journal, and trying to answer this question: are we ready to deal with the post-pandemic cancer surge? You will have seen some information in the media. There's been a drop-off in cancer diagnoses in Victoria in 2020. It's around the order of 20%, but that represents several thousand missing diagnoses of cancer this year. So we're all worried about what happens when we go back to normal, and how are we going to deal with that? Because sometimes we barely struggle with the existing workload. We did a workforce survey, and that's will be presented to the CEO's group at Victoria next month, and is the subject of a submission to the Medical Journal of Australia. But that really demonstrates that we're probably not in a great position to cope with the post-pandemic cancer surge. And we probably do need to think about smarter ways of doing things and more resources soon to cope with the expected surge. I also sit on what's called the telehealth, there's a typo, the Telehealth Experts Group. And again, they've published some information around the barriers enablers to using telehealth in cancer. And a really useful document which on the guidelines on using telehealth beyond COVID. So tumour by tumour, you know, what could be an appropriate situation to use telehealth or not. Because it's not appropriate for every situation, but there's a number of situations that even once we take out the COVID issue, we could do better. So it's a bit of an alphabet soup with all these acronyms. So this was a brain dump I did last night. This is just my ideas. It's nothing that this is not endorsed by the HRICS or the department or anyone else. So I'm sorry, I know Karen's online, others from the department, but this is something that I just sort of. So how are all these groups going to relate in the future? And we've got the department probably working in the policy space, and the HRICS involved with implementing that policy and monitoring the implementation of the policy. We've got the cancer services down here working also as a statewide network, and then we've got the VCCC and the RTN both working more in the research and education space, but working together to try and drive further improvements in cancer. So in summary, my conclusion, why is this all important? I think what we've seen now is some quite powerful statewide and regional collaborations that could be harnessed beyond the pandemic to really drive further improvements in cancer outcomes. I think these new entities will help drive policy implementation. It will address many of the elements of the cancer plan just released. Will really leverage some of that bricks and mortars investment we saw in the cancer centres. And I think we shouldn't forget about the cancer pandemic, which was declared by the World Health Organization in 1999. And they talked about the cancer tsunami that would continue for the foreseeable future until at least mid-century as the population ages. And so we've had the COVID pandemic, but we really shouldn't forget that we still have a big task to try and improve our patients' outcomes. So I'm hoping when we see that release of information in the next couple of weeks that we've seen further improvement in the survival in Hume. And I'd love to do this talk one time and we've seen all of the regional areas come up and match the metro areas. And everywhere we see an improvement way beyond 70% 5-year survival. So, oops, gone the wrong way. So thank you everybody for listening and watching, and thank you to all these partner organisations that have been involved in this effort this year and previously and beyond. Thank you very much.
Craig, thank you very much. That was a fascinating presentation. It's great to see that Hume patients are really up there and that gap is narrowing very much. So well done, and congratulations to everybody from the HRICS and the cancer care system and the consumer side of things to with the progress you're making. That was great. Now, just a reminder to everybody, you can make a comment or you can ask a question via the chat function at the bottom of your screen. So just pop in there with any questions or comments and we'll have a little bit of time to talk with Craig and others about that at the end of the meeting. But Craig, thank you. That was a terrific presentation. We'll move straight away to hear along the same theme, really, to hear from Javier Therese from, Javier's going to talk about connecting cancer care. And he's well known to you also, I know. He's the Clinical Director of Oncology at Goulburn Valley Health and the Co-Clinical Director of the Hume HRICS. So, Javier, thank you for joining us and I'll hand over to you. You might be on mute because I can't hear you. Just need to get you perhaps to come off mute, Javier. That's sounding promising. You there, Javier?
How that works? Now working?
Perfect. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Heather. And thank you very much, Craig, for very nice presentation. regarding all this leadership that you have done, especially in the last couple of years, regarding the establishment and the excellent outcome now with the funding for the RTN. So we are going to talk a little bit about what we have done around this area from the West Hume. I usually like to say that, look, we don't have Peter Mac to fund our Peter Mac Palace, but we got Peter Copulus to help us to get our service going in here, which was established a few years ago already. So in order to get a little bit of background about why we do this service that we're going to call it, is a telehealth service between St. Vincent's Hospital Combined Services for Lung and Gorgon Valley Health. It's because, as you know, and Craig said already, the incidence on Victoria cancer has increasing and is going to continue because of the age population. This is the data up to 2017 that we have now. The other data that we have is just prognostication, but this is real and will continue to happen. Important to know as well that, look, males and females, we're both aging and we are living longer, and ended, we're going to have more risks to have likelihood to get some malignancy, cancer. However, saying that, we start to see some numbers around this on the 30, 42 years, especially in cancers like rectal cancer, which started in some developing countries like United States and that rate has been increasing as well. So we shouldn't forget that it's only for the elderly. Also, we need to see about the young population. Now, regarding what are the leading cancers in Victoria? As we expected, prostate cancer for males is the one that is much frequently diagnosed, followed by breast cancer in female, and then bowel, and followed by very closely respiratory and melanoma, which is unique in Australia regarding melanoma, that is very close to lung cancer. But regarding mortality, we see that still lung cancer and upper GI, most like hepatocellular carcinoma, are the ones that are given the higher mortality rate for those patients. So despite of lung cancer is on the fourth to fifth position on the frequency, still respiratory cancer is the one that produces highest impact in mortality. So this is some data from the new Victoria Cancer Plan 2020-2024, in which is about Victoria data. We know that about 35,000 patients are diagnosed per year, and this is some prognostication for 2018, for which about 11,000 deaths related to cancer. Something that is very scary and is in there for everyone who is watching just now this presentation. You know that out of 3 males, if we get to 75, or us that we are watching this presentation, 1 out of 3 is going to have cancer diagnosed if we reach up to 75. In women, it's going to be very similar. 1 out of 4 ladies sitting there is going to be diagnosed with cancer if we reach 75, which is very scary, as we can realize, but this is the reality because of the aging population. Now, regarding new cases diagnosed, still are the same, saying that melanoma is reaching lung cancer in the 4th place. And once again, it's just unique thing that is happening in Australia. Now, there is some excess deaths regarding preventable cancers, especially cervical cancer, in which that is part of the focus of the Victoria Cancer Plan. But we basically give it just this background information regarding why we choose lung as something that we need to target. But all is not only bad news. So we got some good news regarding survival. As per Dr. Craig Underhill just presented some 5-year overall survival. So the 5-year overall survival is a marker that we call for cure rate or remission or whatever we can call it. This 5-year overall survival is something that we measure. And we know that has been significant increase in the last 30 years, basically, increasing up to 69% for between 2013 and 17. So that means that we have decreased the rates of death in males and females accordingly. So this is not only bad news, and we know that Australia is very well positioned in the world, even in developing countries, above countries like UK and New Zealand regarding mortality. So what about here? What about Shepparton? What about regional? We know that there is this gap, 4% gap in 5-year overall survival between metro and regional rural areas. We don't know exactly if it's one only thing. I think it's multifactorial. One of those, of course, I do believe is access to clinical trials, which means next line of treatments for patients who have run out of the standard care of treatments. But I do believe as well it's relating to some health literacy, socioeconomic status, and also related Aboriginal population in the different regional and rural areas in which we know that, unfortunately, as also on other health services, patients who are Aboriginal background or Torres Strait Islander get poorer prognosis compared with non-Indigenous population. So this is one of the gaps that definitely we need to focus, and this is part of the Revitalize program that Craig just explained, and Gorbon Valley Health will be leading one of those regarding access to clinical trials on this population. So this is Shepparton. This is the Greater Shepparton, and we call it the West Hume area, which we are very well located. So we are only about 180 km from Melbourne. We got nice weather here. We got nice fruits in here. We got very good environment here to definitely improve our service in the future. This is the data for our statistics in 2017. Which is in keeping with the Victoria data. Once again, prostate cancer, the most common, and we go here in 4th position, respiratory, very close to melanoma. So basically, we don't see difference in the West Hume as compared, in talking about frequency of cancer as compared with whole Victoria. And as we know that we saw that the lung cancer has high impact in mortality, and this is the optimal care pathway or OCPs that the health department initiative together with all the health services are putting in place in order to improve the prognosis and overall survival of those patients. And just to remind, in general, we know that if a patient went to see a GP and there is suspicious that there is some high risk of this patient is having some sort of malignancy, now talking about lung cancer, the GP to stick to the optimal care pathways, we need that the GP have to do this test within 1 week, and then within 1 week, this test need to be done and then the referral to the specialist, either oncologist, surgical, or the radiation oncologist. And once the referral done, if we want to stick to the OCPs, this patient need to see within 14 days, so within 2 weeks. And from the time to the referral, from the time to the initial referral to the time that patient start treatment, either surgery, chemotherapy, chemo radiation, or radiation, should be no more than 6 weeks. So this is some data, and this is proved by evidence-based, and this is why we should look in that. And that's very well supported now by the Victorian Cancer Plan 2020-2024, which was released just a couple of weeks ago, in which one of the main points for a short-term goal is to get all the health services complain to these optimal care OCPs, basically. So, and then we came with the idea, we have been running this service that we call basically the MDN that we have run out with St. Vincent's Hospital regarding patients that most likely going to benefit from a surgical resection or a discussion to see if the patient is suitable for a curative intent treatment. So we have done that for a few years, but we see this gap between just presenting the NDM and then the patient need to go there. Some of the patients really don't need to go there just because need to be reviewed by the surgical team, but we can organize preliminary labs, preliminary heart function tests, lung function tests before going in there. So that was created this link, we call it the Combined Thoracic Telehealth Service between St. Vincent's Hospital Metro and Gorbon Valley Health. And basically the people involved is here, and written, so the respiratory physician have been one of the important team involved, given we don't have a respiratory physician working right now in Gorbin Valley Health. Thoracic surgeons expertise, radiologists, pathologists, medical oncology team, and very important, the clinical nurse specialist. This link done by Tamara Matthews, Maria Loda, with our clinical nurse specialist, Paula Norman here, and the medical oncology team. And this with the support with the team and Hume HRICS, just to establish the service and to start to going. So this is basically what I try just to make there, a little bit of, to explain how it works. So let's see if I can explain myself. So we got here the two services, Gorbin Valley Health, and on the right, we got St. Vincent's Hospital. Now we got referrals to GVH regarding lung problems or suspicion lung lesions by the Rapid Access Lung Clinic that has been run for about 4 years and has been successful in order to pick up these patients early on and streamline the process of CT scan, PET scans, rather than wandering in the community waiting for biopsies, when this can be streamlined and discussed promptly. But also we got referrals for other teams from the GVH and outside the hospital regarding consideration of patients for investigation for lung malignancy. But also on the other hand, patients in St. Vincent's Hospital get patients referred directly to there still from around the region. And that's very important, but it's not only one way. If the patient is sent to St. Vincent's Hospital, this patient is going to be ending in GVH. But if this patient needs services in St. Vincent's Hospital, it's going to be the other way around as well. The patient organ in the middle, we got access for MDM telehealth services. We got access to the radiology meeting and combined thoracic telehealth. How I am going with time, Heather?
Javier, you're almost at an end, so we'll need to get you to wrap up if you don't mind.
So look, that's a little bit of data more regarding what we have done. So this service started in March 2020. We have presented these patients on the MDM, which is where we participate, reviewing the scans and also giving our opinions for the local team oncology. There were about 72 episodes of this page, of some of these patients that need to attend telehealth here. So after the patient is discussed on the MDM, is booked a telehealth appointment the same day to be in keeping with the combined thoracic clinic that is multidisciplinary. So the patient is awaiting, and then it got the telehealth with the respiratory team or the surgical team to discuss the options of treatment and if they need to do anything else. So regarding what is working well, I will say definitely this communication between the services, the alignment of the OCPs, the CNS input, and the referral GP and physician satisfaction, and hopefully we continue with sustainability of the clinic. And this is the last slide, which is going to be what we can improve of our services. So basically, maybe some simple things that have been suggested, like the MDM referral templates. Now we got this software that we call it the Cool Victoria, which is basically an MDM software in which we can share with St. Vincent's Hospital, and they are going to, and they are starting already in some services. And hopefully scaling up the model, we have done some starting discussion with upper GI team and hepatobiliary and CNS team, once again with our cluster, that is St. Vincent's Hospital, regarding upscaling this model. And lastly, once again, starting some teletrials model with our hematology consultant that we got here local in Shepparton, Laura Maddy, who is starting clinical trials as well, teletrials with St. Vincent's Hospital. So basically, this is what I have to share about this service. And thanks to the support, especially from the local team here, all the nurses, including Lindley, all the Hume HRICS, Sophie, Sayan, Chibon was involved as well, and all the medical team. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that with us. That's really promising also. It's great to see those technologies being used. So thank you. And just an encouragement to people who are watching in the forum, if you would like to ask any questions or make any comments, please do it on the chat. We'll move right on to hear from Grace Ong. And I know Grace will be well known to you as well. She is very passionate about delivering the highest standard of care. It's wonderful to see radiation oncology in Shepparton, and Grace has been the clinical director of that service, and she's going to explain to us how it was established and how it's travelling. So over to you. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you. So thanks for the opportunity, but really I've been asked to give you an insight to how the centre has been set up, and also the insight of how our year has actually been so far. So just as a very quick, sorry, can you actually see my screen?
We can see your screen, Grace, but yes, that's fine. Yep,
okay,
all good.
Perfect. So just as a quick intro, radiation therapy is certainly a very effective treatment for cure and palliation, and contributes to a role in 40% of all cancer cures. And we treat really a wide range of different cancers. And to do this, you know, it's a teamwork really between radiation oncologists, radiation therapists and physicists as well, and together we utilize technology to safely and effectively deliver treatment, minimizing as few side effects as possible. We also require the support of engineers, of course, oncology nursing and administration staff, and allied health as well. And at the moment, the optimal RT utilization rate in Australia is estimated to be about 48%. In a recent Australian case study, it's shown that, you know, when you establish a new radiation centre in a regional area, that certainly improves the utilization rate of radiation treatment. In this place, I think it was in Orange, went up from 29 to 33%. So it's clear that in Goulburn Valley, it's a clear key area of need for radiotherapy services, as patients certainly were traveling or more than 1.5 hours for their treatment. So certainly having a local service would improve access. Our demographics here are quite unique, as well as an ever-growing population quite rapidly as well, but also an aging population with above average cancer incidence, with high rates of chronic illnesses and a high incidence, I found, of skin cancers as well. And we're a service that provides for both public and private patients, and we do this with a partnership with Goulburn Valley Health. And we have a cap of 360 patients plus 60 concessional patients per financial year. So we went clinical on the 2nd of December 2019. It was actually 1 month earlier than scheduled, our scheduled go live date. So that was quite an achievement, and also came in under budget with regards to the build. The centre build was based on feedback from Consumer Advisory Committee, with an emphasis given on a warm and inviting department with natural light and easy to navigate department. We also received or got local community involvement, which was held locally in Shepparton with the Melbourne Uni campus in July last year. And these consist of members of public, and the outcome of this meeting was that, you know, we got historic artwork that is certainly present throughout the centre, and also local Aboriginal artwork commissioned for the centre as well. And the build used local contractors as well as part of all the process. I'm just showing you some photos of our centre with the circumstances. I would love to be able to give everyone a tour of the beautiful centre that we're in. But on the left here, an example of the Aboriginal artwork that's right outside my door, my clinic room. And certainly that's on the right side, a pathway to the bunker. And that's a photograph, I believe, of Dookie from a local photographer. And more photographs of historic photos. And on the right bottom, this certainly got a lot of patients talking, certainly during the opening, but also that continued. And I'm not talking about the coffee machine, I'm really talking about the splashback that is used for the tea and coffee station, which is quite important to note, as we are actually on the site of the old Duckett's Dairy and where it used to be. So in terms of the center, if you like the specs, we're a single linear accelerator department. We have a variant true beam linear accelerator with a 6 degree of freedom couch with a GE CT scanner. We have real-time position management, or RPM, that track patient movements, including breathing, that enables us to increase accuracy using respiratory gating. It's an RTLS system as well that manages patients and staff moving through the facility, and these are the software that we use. It's Mosaic, Aria Light, and Eclipse. These are the team, so that's a photo of us at our opening, and certainly, you know, to deliver patient care, it certainly involves teamwork, and that's every single person in this center is equally and vitally important. You can't ask for a better center leader than Dee, who's also dialed into this meeting. Certainly, she's brought the enthusiasm, and it really is evident through every single person in the department. We've got Craig and Eddie, who are both radiation oncologists in Albury, who are visiting the center, and our radiation therapist, who's led by Karen, who brings with her a wealth of experience as well. Our nurses and patient service team or administrative staff are local, and we've got a physicist and engineer as well, who's now local to Shepparton. And this slide basically just highlights the radiation therapy pathway and the importance of having every single person and how much it's actually really teamwork, definitely not a one-person job. So the year that it was, so 2nd of December, we went live. We started off with 4 patients on our first day. By week 4 in January, certainly we had 30 patients of treatment, and the high activity numbers were achieved very quickly, and rapid access to cancer care was evident with quick referral to consult times and short referral to treatment timelines. At the beginning of the year, we managed to host a prostate cancer support group session. We celebrated International Women's Day, introduced DIBH and tattoo-free treatment for breast cancer patients, had our official opening eventually on the 17th of February, and participated in fundraising activities as well. But then COVID happened. So just as we all were just getting to know each other and working out workflows, the team had to very quickly change and adapt to new ways of working with the challenging situation of managing a global pandemic, but also growing patient activity. And you know, the team basically just showed innovation, thinking outside the box and solutions as well, and with keeping the #1 priority of keeping our staff and patients safe throughout this time. A lot of measures that were in place, in particular, the special mention of the dedicated multidisciplinary task force that we had. That was, it's a national meeting that actually happens. It's conducted really with a senior radiation oncologist, a treating radiation oncologist, safety and quality and risk managers. And the whole idea of this was to you know, come together, bring cases if there were issues, and just figuring out how these patients could, I suppose, proceed with their cancer care appropriately in a timely fashion. And we did have to use this for one of our patients who was in a facility in a lockdown due to a staff member being positive of that facility. So we had to refer her to this national task force and certainly discuss the logistics of how we actually got her back to have a treatment and manage that appropriately. We worked remotely where appropriate, and this is certainly very supported by the solid IT infrastructure that we have, limiting the travel of you know, the staff. And I can say that we're all truly now real Sheppartonians, and everything else, I suppose, has been, you know, nothing I suppose different to what most of the other health services would be doing: social distancing, screening, limiting visitors, etc., etc. We had planned a lot of engagement activities, but unfortunately a lot of them has been on hold. So watch the space. We intend to certainly go out to the local GPs and community and certainly have more activities that way. But what we did do and have been doing certainly is some joint case studies with the oncology team at Goulburn Valley Health, discuss the co-management of patients and where there are areas of improvement for further partnerships. And that really just strengthens our relationships as well between the two services. We still participated in research despite all of that. So we've been enrolling patients into these two trials, and certainly been starting a national database for skin cancer, and of course continued governance activities and staff continued education. So these are just some slides of pictures which I'll go through very quickly. Just to give you an idea, within 6 months of opening, the team treated over 200 patients. As of mid-October, we've treated about 378 patients. And we've done all of this with very high patient satisfaction. We're also a very efficient treatment team here, and certainly ranked the highest within the Genesis Care family in the most recent engagement survey as well. So that's pretty much saying that while we were busy, we had to adapt to things, we worked very hard, and we enjoyed it, and we did it, we stayed happy doing it. This diagram pretty much shows us where our referrals come from in terms of on the map itself, and you can see the little green dot at the corner on the left is Mildura. So we've had patients come as far as Mildura. Swan Hill is where that orange one is, and then of course Melbourne, and of course the surrounding region here. These are the postcodes of where our patients live. And yeah, you can see the majority of the patients obviously come locally, about 30, almost 40% of patients from the Shepparton region. The slide is really just to say that Javier and his team has kept us busy. So, you know, by the speciality that certainly gives us the most referrals are actually from our medical oncologist, and of all different tumor streams as well. Challenges, really, there have been two particular in this year, and just understanding the referral pathways, because we do get patients that come literally from everywhere in Victoria, and then obviously COVID with the change in practice and having to just change the way we work. And this is my last slide. So in the future, there are a couple of things that we will be looking at. And one of them is that we're very excited to certainly hopefully introduce stereotactic radiation therapy by the end of 2020. We've had our audit just completed 2 weeks ago, and certainly results are very positive. We're still going through training and competency assessments, and we'll probably start with lung and bony mets, and then later on introduce intracranial stereo depending on our referral needs. We're thinking and certainly looking to develop a skin program, because there seems to be a lot of you know, referrers or skin cancer patients this way, and looking to partner with GPs and the local surgical team and perhaps a dermatology unit as well, and somehow streamline these referral processes, and also obviously facilitate more patients to have treatment closer to home, as we are now more integrated in the Goulburn Valley. We'll have our second on-site radiation oncologist. I hope that date is correct. I think November next month anyway, and something that we should all certainly be looking at, and quite close to my heart, is retaining the skills that we have in this center and the staff, and also continue to upskill the staff that are you know, working in this department. So that's really it in a nutshell of how our year has been, or barely a year, almost a year. I do have a video that I would
Grace, I'm not sure that we're going.
I'm just wondering, in the interest of time, if we even have that. It's about
Grace,
over a minute.
We won't have time to show the video, unfortunately, but what we could do is pop it on the report of the meeting on the web.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you. Congratulations on your year to you and your staff. And that's a really positive presentation. It's a fabulous addition to the services for the region. And, you know, it's great to see it up and running. So well done. Yeah. And thanks for your presentation. Now, I'm conscious that we are out of time. We've got a few questions, but I'm going to suggest that we might pop the answers to the questions up on the web as well, because we did schedule an hour, and I know that people will will be wanting to get off to their evenings. So there's a couple of questions about workforce and questions about allied health, and people saying it looks beautiful, your service, Grace, so your facility. So thank you for showing that. I think at this point what we might do is hold our questions, put the answers up on the web. We'll ask the speakers to address them and we'll send them, make them available to you. And I think at this point we should, from me, thank you to the speakers. It's been really interesting to listen to you all. I'm going to hand over to Sophie Scott, and Sophie's well known to you all as the program manager of the Hume HRICS. And I'm going to ask Sophie to just briefly talk about the annual report and then wrap up the meeting. Thank you, Sophie. You've got your mute off. Yes, thank you.
Thanks very much, Heather. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thanks, Sophie.
Terrific. Thanks very much. Once again, everybody, we seem to always run over time, no matter how hard we try. So my apologies, but I think it's been really valuable to listen to Craig, Javier, and to Grace in regards to the work that they've been doing, particularly over the last 18 months. I know this forum is really looking at what happened in the last 12 months, but particularly COVID's changed the environment for everyone. So I just wanted to just give a quick wrap up and a little bit of a sense of what's happened in Hume HRICS over the last 12 months. We have seen the end of the Victorian Cancer Plan 2016 to 2020, and we're very proud to have made significant progress in improving access and timeliness to care. Most importantly, at the moment, Hume region is leading regional Victoria in 5-year survival across all cancer streams, and Craig did show an example of that earlier. Last year, we were working, some of this picture is from the new Victorian Cancer Plan 2020 to 2024, but in particular, the outer circle talks about the focus of optimal care pathways, and from the last plan to this plan, it continues. So our usual work in regards to the supportive care refresh, which we've had terrific engagement from health services across the region, that work has been virtually completed pre-COVID, which has been terrific. There's been a lot of work in regards to optimal care pathways for head and neck and pancreatic cancers, as well as finishing off some work for prostate and esophageal and upper gastric cancers as well. With COVID coming in, it's really been opportunistic now for us in regards to MDM linkages, the role of the HRICS in maximising and optimising those MDM linkages, making sure through telehealth as well that patients in the regions have access to specialist care close to home has really become a bit of a focus now for us going forward. So try to keep this fairly brief for now, given that we have run over time. But most importantly, last year we did see significant consultation for the development of the Victorian Cancer Plan, which has just been published for 2020-2024, and also the Hume Region Cancer Services Plan. There was terrific town halls, focus groups, consumer consultation and engagement, clinician consultation and engagement for both plans, which has been marvellous. And I need to thank each and every one of you for your contributions to both of those plans. The role of a big piece of work for the Integrated Cancer Services going forward now that the 2016 to 2020 plan has completed is working on the future priorities, both at a state level with the Victorian Cancer Plan and at a local level with both the Hume Plan and the Victorian Plan, to be able to continue to improve access for care closer to home, improving telehealth, both from a user end perspective for patients and for clinicians, and linking that expert opinion and care to be able to keep patients in the region and optimise the opportunities that COVID-19 has brought around for us. Coming forward, you'll see a new face for Hume HRICS and for the Victorian Integrated Cancer Services coming shortly, with a statewide website, as well as change of logos and a wonderful fresh face, which I'm really looking forward to being able to share with each and every one of you. from tonight. You will receive a feedback survey for the virtual forum. We'd really love to hear your opinion on both the speakers and also how the virtual format has worked. In particular, I'd like to thank the Department of Health for their ongoing funding of the Integrated Cancer Services, for our governance group, Michael as the chair, and for all of the health service executives that put in so much time and energy to improving cancer services and improving patient experiences across the Hume region. I'd like to thank Craig and Javier as clinical directors and for their support and advice over the years. To our consumer representatives, in particular, Raja and Kathleen, their input's been invaluable across a variety of different projects, and particular in the consultation phase that's been very strong in the last 12 months. To patients and carers across the region and providing their feedback and experiences of care, it's been really important. To primary care providers, to the Hume HRICS team in particular, I'm not going to name all of you right now, but thank you so much for the work that you do every day, and for all of the health service staff and oncology and supportive care staff in community and within the health services. I think looking at some of the results that have come about, it's really encouraging to see we're heading in the right direction. As Heather mentioned, we will circulate your questions that have been collated through the chat function to the clinicians that have presented tonight, and those answers will be collated and sent out to you, also with a copy of our annual report. And I think that pretty much wraps it up in a nutshell. My apologies for needing to cut the panel discussion short, and also my feedback for the last 12 months. But thank you all very much for your input tonight, and I hope you all have a safe evening. Stay safe where you are, and we look forward to seeing you in the flesh at some stage in the not too distant future. And thank you very much to Heather and Janet as well.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.